If you're invested in Canadian oil and gas, then there's two major news stories that came out this weekend that you need to know about and that we need to talk about as a community to understand how they will move our investments. The first is the meeting of the Western premiers and the conversations they had about potential economic corridors, specifically floating the idea of a port in Churchill up in Manitoba and potentially a trans-Western Canadian pipeline / train line that would go across the north of the Western Canadian provinces, maybe connect up to the Northwest Territories, open up a whole bunch of investment up there. They had a lot of things to say, really interesting. The second was the new energy minister, Tim Hodgson, going down to Calgary and making a lot of bold claims about the things he's going to do that are going to be very different than his predecessors and that could dramatically impact our investments. So today we're going to talk about both of those big news stories. We're going to cover what I think. We're going to cover what the various articles have been written about it think, and we're going to talk a little bit just about how we think the direction of Canadian oil and gas might go in the next couple of years. Welcome to Golden Arch Investing. My name is Liam. On the channel, we talk about investing in Canada. Today, obviously, we're focusing a little bit on some oil and gas specific stuff. But that's been a big part of the channel recently because there is an asymmetric opportunity here. If you haven't seen my various videos on the topic, essentially, Canadian oil and gas is at a massive discount. The companies trading publicly are much cheaper than they should be based on the value of the assets they own, regardless of how profitable they are in the moment with the short-term headwinds to Canadian oil. With long-term assets, with fantastic cost break-evens, with potential tailwinds moving the industry forwards, these companies seem to be great opportunities for those of us looking to make some serious money in the medium to long term. And so today, our conversation focuses on what might be changing from a policy perspective in Canada that could benefit these companies, and therefore make us as investors a lot of money. First thing I'm going to throw up on the screen here for you guys. This is from Global News. It is an article talking about those Western premiers and specifically their agreement to develop new economic corridors. Now, if you have heard the word economic corridor before, it's probably because we've been promised them by every politician under the sun at this point. Everybody in Canada is talking about eliminating interprovincial trade barriers, making it easier to trade with each other, making it easier to build stuff, which is great, but talk is cheap and action is important. So let's see what things the Western premiers specifically have agreed to work on together and see maybe how this could impact us. So obviously they've agreed to identify, plan, and develop new economic corridors. Identify and plan, again, cheap. Develop is the expensive part that we're hoping to actually see happen. They issued a joint statement on Thursday saying that doing so would boost Canada's market access in Asia and Europe. So that tells me West Coast and East Coast. And obviously the only real East Coast the Western premiers have is Manitoba there. And it will help the country fight a trade war with the United States and China. Nation building infrastructure in Western Canada, such as highways, railways, ports, airports, pipelines, nuclear projects, and electricity transmission systems are crucial for driving Canadian productivity growth, energy security, and economic competitiveness, says a statement from the leaders of BC, the Prairie Provinces, and the Northern Territories. This includes developing and transporting oil and gas, liquefied natural gas, uranium, electricity, and hydroelectricity to Canadian and world markets, as well as in emerging opportunities such as hydrogen, biofuels, and small modular nuclear reactors. Premiers who met for 2 years in Yellowknife spoke at a closing news conference before the agreement was made public. I recommend you check out the conference. I feel like it's been clipped everywhere on the internet, and you'll see like little snippets of things people want you to see. Watch the whole thing if you have an opportunity. I'm sure CPAC has it somewhere. They say it's time for Western Canada to become the country's economic engine. I absolutely agree. And the only thing standing in the way is the lack of infrastructure necessary to transport resources to new markets. We have been talking about that on the channel ad nauseum. Literally every single week we talk about that potential. Premiers also said they can't act alone. They call on PM Mark Carney for support. Specifically, this is the bit I really care about, connecting ports on the West Coast to the coast of Hudson's Bay. Hallelujah. That could be amazing. Think about the potential, right? If you're connecting, the ports of, let's say, Prince Rupert, Kitimat, and Vancouver across the Prairie Provinces all the way to Hudson's Bay, there are so many opportunities there. It's like, I cannot emphasize enough how giant this would be for companies like the Canadian oil and gas companies that we're talking about today, but also anybody that is doing any sort of mineral extraction in the Northwest Territories or mineral extraction in the Prairie Provinces, any farming, any, uranium, potash, all of these Canadian companies would benefit a lot from this. Build economic security and prosperity for all Canadians. Joint statement says of the port connection, adding a call for new federal funding programs for other economic corridors in remote northern communities. Today's annual meeting of Western premiers comes 2 weeks before all the premiers are supposed to gather at Carney in Saskatoon. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe said the Western Conference felt like the start of a generationally beneficial discussion. I think, okay, language matters. Listen to that. He's promising generational benefits. That says to me that maybe something's actually going to happen. We weren't getting promised generational benefits 5 years ago. We weren't getting promised generational benefits 10 years ago. So there's something changing here. They also talk about Arctic security, emergency preparedness, public safety. All of that's super important. Put a united front forwards. BC Premier David Eby said Alberta Premier Daniel Smith's recent calls to the revival of Northern Gateway should have connected Alberta oil to the northern coast of BC, and the cancelling of BC North Tanker ban are premature. Okay, he's got to say that. He's an NDP premier. What do you expect from him? Urgency to get product of Tidewater. I'd start there with conversations with the federal government about ensuring that this publicly owned infrastructure is used to its full capacity. Important parts of that. I think that critically connecting the West Coast through the prairies to the Hudson's Bay is a fantastic opportunity. And I think it would change the game for oil and gas. Imagine the amount of potential you could get from that pipeline. And let me be clear, this is not a crazy idea. This is an idea that was talked about a year ago. There was some joint action putting together a port there. It is something that the NDP Premier of Manitoba supports. He thinks this is a good idea. It is also something that is done all over the world. I have seen people say, what do you mean we're going to put a port in Churchill? The Hudson's Bay freezes over. Most of the ports on the north coast of Eurasia, be it Norway, Russia, Finland, are frozen ports at some points in the year, and they still are able to extract and export oil. There is absolutely the tech to do it. And Canada, honestly, should probably have that technology if you want to talk about a more broad conversation. So I think there's definitely opportunity there, definitely opportunity for the West Coast, definitely opportunity to connect both of them together in a sort of, a northwest passage, but inland. I think there's a huge opportunity there. And I think that could dramatically improve the situation for Canadian oil and gas companies. I think that could really, really change things for them. We have talked about eliminating the differential. If we can get 1-2 more projects just planned, proposed, we see them start to be built. We see them get past that dang approval phase that cut so many down in the last decade. Then there is going to be a run on Canadian oil. You will see the stock market gains way before you see the pipelines put in the ground. So yeah, I know it takes a long time to build those pipelines, but remember, the market is a forward-looking mechanism. If you see the contracts go in, expect a boost. You see the, shovels in the ground, expect a boost. But of course, I can hear the argument people are going to make. It's all well and good for the premiers to talk about this, but where is the federal government on this? And it's always tough. We are going to see a whole bunch of federal government news here, but I want to show you what the energy minister said just this weekend in Calgary. Okay, we got an article here from BNN Bloomberg. They're sharing it from Reuters. It's called New Canadian Energy Minister Vows an End to Lengthy Project Approvals. Now, before I get the people in the comments talking to me about how liberals are always lying, I get it. There are strong political biases when we talk about oil and gas. And the strong bias is to say the last 10 years have been terrible. From the perspective of the oil and gas industry, why would we trust the same party now? Well, this is a new person, and he definitely has ties to the industry. So I think we at the very least should hear him out until his actions go contrary to his words. And the words he's saying are incredibly promising when you pair them with what the premiers are saying. The new Natural Resource Minister, Tim Hodgson, vowed to speed up the permitting process for major projects on Friday in a speech welcomed by oil and gas executives eager to see Ottawa reset its regulatory approach to energy development. Those long permitting processes were one of the major factors contributing to not only the massive expense of getting any energy projects done in Canada, but also just blocking outright basically any crude oil pipelines that were not TMX. It was Hodgson's first speech in Canada's corporate oil capital of Calgary since being sworn in as part of Prime Minister Mark Carney's new cabinet. Oil and gas sector has a tense relationship with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government. I would say more than tense, which it viewed as prioritizing climate action over economic development. Carney's pledged to help diversify energy export markets amid a trade dispute with Canada's number one customer, the US. In the new economy we're building, Canada will no longer be defined by delay. We will be defined by delivery, Hodgson said at an event hosted by the Calgary Chamber of Commerce. Former Goldman Sachs banker who was elected in a Toronto riding, Hodgson pledged to be a voice for Western Canada and help the energy sector improve relations with Ottawa. He said he will work to identify and fast-track projects of national interest aimed at helping the country become a more conventional and clean energy superpower. Think about that. Projects of national interest. Can we think of some that were just mentioned by a whole bunch of premiers who just came together? I think that this is lining up to be the project of the next 5 years. And I know, again, just words, but think about the potential. If we get tidewater access on both coasts in the next 5-10 years, then Canadian oil and gas will be worth a multiple of what it's trading at today. If we think about the MEG deal that just went through, where Strathcona Resources just tried to buy MEG and then they fought, and now there's all up in the air, and they're on this whole dramatic period of MEG wanting one thing, MEG shareholders wanting one thing, Strathcona wanting. That boosted the price of those shares by 25% just by saying, hey, someone's willing to pay for it. Imagine what people are going to be willing to pay for oil sands assets if we see approvals go through, pipelines go through, we see a massive cut in the differential, and all of a sudden, this is the most profitable oil sector on earth. I think you're going to see insane gains. Let's keep going through this article. No more 5-year reviews. Decisions will come in 2 years for all projects to make that happen. That's significantly better. Hodgson said responsibly produced Canadian oil could displace oil produced in authoritarian regimes, so the country needed infrastructure to get its energy to ports to export to markets beyond the US. In recent years, major Canadian oil pipelines have faced years of regulatory delay and legal challenges, leading to cancellations for some projects and spiraling costs for others. The CEOs of many of Canada's biggest oil and gas companies said they were encouraged by Hodgson's background in finance, as well as the pro-development tone of his remarks. The renewed sense of collaboration is welcome and genuinely appreciated, said John Whelan, president of Imperial Oil, after the speech. Hodgson also said the federal government, the province of Alberta, and industry leaders must work together to bring a proposed oil sands carbon capture and storage project, which is the Pathways Alliance. 6 of Canada's largest oil sands companies have proposed building a $16 billion carbon capture network to reduce emissions from the sector, but negotiations with both levels of government have stalled. Kendall Dilling, president of Pathways Alliance Consortium behind the proposed project, said on Friday he's optimistic that under Canada's new government project will proceed. I do think the time is now. So significant changes. The message is maybe not drill, baby, drill, maybe not build, baby, build, right? Maybe not these big grandstanding slogans, but the message is directly to industry. We are going to do things better. We are going to get things built. I don't think you're going to see oil run off of these statements. I don't think you're going to see a 5-10% boost in companies like Canadian Natural today or tomorrow. But in a month, in 2 months, in 3 months, in 6 months, when we see these projects actually start getting talked about seriously, when we see real proposals coming forth, when we see real structures being put in place to make this happen, it's going to change the game. So, as a Canadian investor, as somebody who has significant amounts of money put into Canadian companies, specifically in Canadian oil and gas, where there is huge opportunity for a massive bull run, thanks to so many exterior factors, seeing even the slightest change here in Canada is going to exponentially improve long-term returns. If you see the differential eliminated for the long term, Canadian oil and gas is going to be one of the best investment opportunities of our lifetimes. Now, again, there's always a chance we get disappointed by politicians. And I know that we have been led astray time and time again by big words at these fancy conferences that have promised everything, delivered nothing. But I think at the very least, we should be cautiously optimistic. I am a big fan of this industry. I think there are a million reasons you should be investing in it beyond this. And I have talked about them all over this channel. I recommend you check out the videos. But today, seeing all of this being said by people that just years ago you would have seen as complete enemies of the Canadian oil and gas sector, I think there's real potential for real change in Canada. And I hope that you are along for the ride as we see some of these stocks really take off. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed that, please do like and subscribe. And I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Again, I know words are cheap. Action takes a lot more than just talking about it. But what projects do you think are likely to get built? What forms do you think these projects could take? Do you believe that they're actually going to get stuff done? What sort of things do you think are the potentials, and what should we be looking out for? Let us know in the comments down below. And with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I see you in the next one.